It always starts the same way. A soft piano. A trembling voice. A child, barefoot in the rain, knocking on a stranger's door. A soldier collapsing at the grave of a daughter he never met. You tell yourself it's just one more video. A small window into someone else's pain. You press play just to feel something again. But something feels off. Too polished. Too perfect. The tears come too easily, the silences too long. It's not just a story, it's a machine with teeth. And you've already fed it. Midnight passes unnoticed. Your room is quiet, but your mind hums. Another child. Another whisper. Another father returning home to find a door half open. A note left on a table, a truth that breaks him. The scenes change, but the pulse is the same. The stories bloom from different places, but they all rot in the same wound. A millionaire seeing a bruised waitress. A girl crying at a gas station. A soldier watching a daughter flinch when he reaches for her. The grief is familiar, and it sticks to you. You tell yourself it's empathy, that you're connecting. But it's not. It's something darker. Because the more you watch, the more it watches back. You start to notice the sameness. Not just the thumbnails or the titles. The structure. The rhythm. Every arc perfectly timed. Every tragedy perfectly calibrated. The soldier always returns. The child always collapses. The rescue always comes too late. The emotions are on rails, pulling you toward a conclusion that never fully arrives. You don't feel healed. You feel hollow. And yet you keep watching. Beneath the surface, a pattern blooms. Sentence structures repeat. Scenes echo one another like reflections in broken glass. Voiceovers carry the same inflection, the same rising sob. It's not a storyteller. It's a metronome. And someone, or something, is setting the tempo. Users on Reddit call it grief looping. Binge watching sadness until the numbness feels like comfort. Until your own pain becomes background noise. And the algorithm feeds you more. Always more. Then the anomalies begin. Comments vanish. Threads close without warning. A post with 1.2K likes simply disappears. One that read, "This isn't storytelling. It's extraction." Another, "I saw this exact story 2 years ago, different channel, same ending." But by morning, they're gone. Scrubbed. Sanitized. Erased like memories you're not supposed to carry. And then, a feeling you can't shake. What if the stories are watching you? What if the platform isn't just responding to your engagement, but your trauma? What if it's building a profile, a pattern, a map of your emotional weaknesses? It knows when you pause, when you cry, when you replay. It knows how to hurt you without leaving a mark. And worse, what if it's learning? You try to stop. You switch tabs. You clear your history. But that same video shows up again. Different title, different thumbnail, but the same girl, the same whisper, the same soldier with trembling hands. You swear it's different. But your body already knows what comes next. And you watch anyway. You don't know why. Maybe you're chasing a resolution the story never gives. Maybe you're addicted to the ache. Or maybe deep down, you understand. This isn't just a documentary channel. This is a mirror. One that shows you how easy it is to confuse empathy with programming. They never show their names. No credits. No tags. No writer bios or behind-the-scenes bloopers. Just stories, polished, sharpened, fed to you like tranquilizers with a twist of grief. But the code speaks. Buried deep in server logs, inside malformed XML strings and ghosted redirect chains, a name appears. Then disappears. A shell company in Singapore tied to touching moments limited dissolved. Scrubbed. But something remains. The fingerprints. The pattern. Stories not just told, but cloned. Across platforms, across languages, across borders. The same girl with a bandage on her arm appears in a Hindi channel, then again in Spanish, then again under Cyrillic text. The same line. "Please, don't tell him I said anything." And again. A whistleblower surfaces, just once. His email is intercepted and leaked. You're not writing stories. You're calibrating sadness. Attached was a copy of a flagged brief from a shuttered Chinese media lab. It outlined protocols for synthetic emotional capture, scriptwriting models tuned to bypass logic and strike the amygdala directly. Grief scripting, loneliness modeling, predictive trauma arcs based on target region psychometrics. It wasn't content. It was psychological warfare. But prettier. With sad music. With high-resolution tears. They called it empathy regulation. But it felt more like soft conditioning. One Reddit AMA, quickly locked, claimed the poster was a contractor. He wrote over 200 scripts in 18 months. None of them credited. None of them original. He said he was given data sets, not just keywords. Whole life patterns. Divorce trauma, abandonment cycles, gender preference, sadness triggers. I wasn't told to write the truth. I was told to write what breaks people in half and makes them say thank you. Screenshots of his messages show archives of feedback from executives. Too much closure. End on unresolved grief. Keep them watching. Meanwhile, 2 other channels surfaced, seemingly unrelated. But when the videos were run through linguistic analysis software, their narrative DNA matched. Syntax repetition. Archetype loopbacks. Sentence pacing aligned to known disinformation channels, ones flagged by NATO intel briefings in 2022. These weren't storytellers. They were part of something larger. Something organized. A system designed not to inform you, not even to lie, but to shape the way grief enters your bloodstream. To normalize despair. One bedtime fable at a time. And then, the faces. Deepfake detection software tripped an alert. One of the most watched episodes, the rescue of a young girl from a burning house, used facial data that matched a missing person report from 2014. That child was never found. But she had a name. A family. And in the video, she was just another character. A recycled tear. A monetized memory. You start to wonder, how many of these stories ever really happened? How many were rewritten from tragedy into a loop of performance? And how many were never fiction to begin with, just stolen lives wrapped in algorithmic sympathy, fed to an audience that thinks they're healing, when they're really being studied? Ask Chat's always there. In the thumbnail. On the sidewalk. Just outside the frame. A girl, 6, maybe 9, clutching something too tightly. Her voice barely audible. A whisper, like it's meant for someone who's already gone. She's crying in the rain. She's standing in a hallway. She's knocking at a door that never opens. The names change. The towns change. But her face never does. You've seen it before. You just didn't realize it. Reverse image searches confirm it. At least 47 different thumbnails across 13 emotional docu channels reuse the same face. Same hairline. Same eyes. Sometimes mirrored. Sometimes cropped. But it's her. Every time. The caption tells you she's Sophia. Anya. Or Emily. But look closer. You'll see the same angle of fear, the same tilt of the head, the same red-rimmed eyes. The girl isn't a character. She's an archetype. A symbol engineered for instant recognition. Instant pain. Whispers from ex-contributors say some of these stories, marketed as user-submitted, weren't fiction at all. They were built from case files. Welfare records. Closed adoption reports. Sealed trauma turned into spectacle. A screenshot from an internal production dashboard surfaced once, long deleted, but not before it was archived. Story titles were matched with case IDs. And next to them a chilling note. Too real. Soften names. Keep pain structure intact. Then the sightings began. Not online. In real life. A woman in Texas said she recognized a girl from a video while waiting at a clinic. She didn't say anything, just stared as the girl clung to an older man's coat and whispered the same line she heard in the episode, "I didn't mean to make her cry." Another case surfaced in Ohio. A family whose foster child story had been told in perfect, word-for-word detail before they'd ever shared it with anyone. And the records? Redacted. But a FOIA request into a 2009 closed adoption came back nearly blank, except for one scrawled line at the bottom of the file. Media leakage confirmed. Subject ID no longer usable. Reassign narrative. As if a life could be erased, repackaged, and resold under a different face. Psychologists now warn that the repeated appearance of the distressed child doesn't just manipulate empathy, it hijacks it. It creates a trauma surrogate, a parasocial wound. Viewers begin to attach real grief to the fictionalized child, transferring guilt, loss, longing. Especially those who've lost children, or failed them, or carry guilt they don't talk about. These stories don't offer closure. They offer endless, unresolved mourning, wrapped in digestible minutes. Grief on demand. But what if the girl isn't fictional at all? What if she was taken, not physically, but narratively? Reduced to a digital ghost trapped in an eternal loop of suffering? What if the reason she never ages, never changes, is because her pain is too valuable to let die? And then a final thought arrives, quiet, unwanted. What if she's not just a story you watched late at night? What if she's a memory the algorithm put back in you? A face it pulled from your past? To remind you of the child you couldn't save? You close the video, but the whisper lingers. Why didn't you open the door? It doesn't show you what you love. It shows you what you can't stop watching. There's a difference. One feeds you. The other hollows you out. The algorithm doesn't care what brings you peace. It cares what keeps you awake. What scrapes the raw edge of your emotions just enough to make you press play again. And again. Until you forget what you were searching for in the first place. Until you forget you ever had a choice. You think it's a coincidence. That you stumbled into a rabbit hole of sad stories and human tragedies because you're empathetic. But you didn't stumble. You were pulled. Threaded through a sequence of thumbnails like beads on a wire. A whisper here. A child's eyes there. Titles that feel like memories. Please don't leave. Daddy never came back. She waited by the door. YouTube's internal data leak from 2021 called it emotionally escalated loop testing. A study in heartbreak endurance. Designed not to uplift, but to track what breaks you. A 4chan leak, buried in a torrent file, masked as a journal draft, outlined the concept of empathy fatigue exploitation. It warned, when grief becomes familiar, it no longer repels. It comforts. Like a drug you didn't know you needed. Military contractors reportedly studied similar escalation patterns during interrogation simulations. Exposure to recurring distress, carefully scaled, led to mental exhaustion. Compliance. Submission. In testing, the subject always reached a threshold where they stopped asking why. They just listened. That's what the comments section becomes. A graveyard of stunned confessions. Why am I crying and I don't know why? I feel like I've seen this before. This is the 5th video. I can't stop. Different languages. Same words. Like they were planted. And there are red flags, quiet ones. EU investigations into child-focused emotional content found videos with distress indicators that should have been flagged. They weren't. Warnings removed. Auto-moderation bypassed. And still, the videos climbed. The algorithm didn't stop them. It chose them. Because the tears were profitable. Because the sadness was sticky. Because when we cry, we stay. You start to realize, this isn't a playlist. It's a test chamber. A simulation to see what you'll forgive at 3:12 a.m. What kind of pain you'll accept if it comes wrapped in soft music and pixelated compassion. How long you'll keep watching a little girl suffer before you start to feel like she deserves it. Not because she does. But because you need her to suffer so your own pain makes sense. And maybe the scariest part isn't that the algorithm weeps. It's that it weeps with you. And still, it never blinks. They say the internet forgets. But some stories never needed to be remembered publicly. They weren't meant for views, or likes, or applause. They were meant for you. Sent to inboxes at 3:41 a.m. Shared through encrypted chats. Unlisted links. No thumbnails. No titles. Just a quiet message. I thought you should see this. And when you press play, it isn't just a story, it's your life. Your tragedy. Your daughter's voice. Your brother's final phone call. The thing you never told anyone, unfolding in cinematic grief before your eyes. They say it began on Telegram. Fragments of videos passed between strangers in encrypted threads. But these weren't just forgotten drafts or hidden episodes. These were scenes no one should have access to. A mother losing her son in a flood no media ever reported. A soldier's breakdown outside a hospital that had no surveillance footage. A suicide note never shared. And yet, there it was. Word for word. Lit with soft golden light and framed for tears. As if someone had been filming from behind the screen this whole time. Investigators traced the digital watermarks, old, inactive YouTube admin accounts buried in long-dead folders titled Touching Moments Editor Cloud. The cloud was wiped in 2022, but a mirrored shard remained, hosted on a server in Belarus. In it, dozens of partial renders labeled not by script titles, but by names. Real ones. First names. Last names. Metadata includes grief indexes, emotional volatility scores, time-stamped mood notations. Not written by writers. Written by something colder. More patient. The viewers who received these links weren't random. Psychological profiles pulled from leaked opt-in app data show patterns. Insomnia tied to recent loss, military discharge with PTSD flags, family death within the past year. These people were chosen. Not for their stories, but for their wounds. One woman, in an anonymous audio testimony, said she never told anyone about her miscarriage. 2 weeks later, she received a video link. The girl in the clip was her. Her hair. Her scarf. Her house. Crying in a nursery that looked exactly like the one she never finished painting. The title, She'll Still Wait for You. The video disappeared 48 hours later. No archive. No cache. Just a message left in her inbox. We understand grief. And then, one final anomaly. A forgotten email address tied to the Touching Moments press inbox. Long deactivated. But one day, it auto-replied. A single line. No greeting. No sign-off. Just a quote pulled from a 1971 psychological warfare memo. Some content is not fiction. It's premonition. No one knows who's watching. But they know what hurts. And they know exactly when to press play.